You and your kids are not coming on the family trip. Amanda's kids do not want you there. You ruin the aesthetic. My mother spat those words at me while waving my own platinum bank card in the air like a hunting trophy. She thought she had won a free luxury vacation by stealing from me. She had no idea that as a senior financial auditor, I do not operate on emotion. I operate on data and timing. A month earlier, I had already booked my own children a far better trip. When their stolen vacation fell apart and mine went ahead, my mother called my phone 36 times in a single hour begging for mercy. My name is Megan. I am 34 years old, and I raised my two children completely on my own while dealing with a family that only saw me as an ATM. Before I continue this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever had to stand up to a toxic family member who underestimated your worth. The air in my mother's Seattle living room always smelled of expensive lavender and unspoken judgment. I stood on her pristine cream-colored rug wearing my tailored work suit. In her eyes, I was still the invisible and inadequate underachiever. It did not matter that I was a senior financial auditor at a top-tier firm. It did not matter that I fully supported my two children, Leo and Sophie, entirely on my own after my divorce. In this house, there was only one star, and her name was Amanda. "I am going to ask you one more time, Mom," I said. My voice was dangerously calm, entirely devoid of the frantic emotion she was clearly hoping to provoke. "Where is my platinum card? I noticed it missing from my wallet on Tuesday, right after you came over to borrow my stand mixer." Barbara did not even have the decency to look ashamed. At 60 years old, my mother had perfected the art of the narcissistic pivot. She sat on her velvet armchair, adjusted the collar of her cashmere cardigan, and slowly opened her designer handbag. With a theatrical sigh, she pulled out my heavy metal platinum card and held it up between her manicured fingers. She did not hand it to me, she merely displayed it. The silver caught the light from the chandelier. "Do not take that tone with me, Megan," Barbara scolded. Her voice dripped with artificial sweetness. "I needed to secure the deposit for the Aspen trip. You know your father's credit limit is not what it used to be, and Amanda's funds are tied up in her home renovations. I was going to tell you, but you are always so terribly busy and high-strung. Besides, it is a family vacation. Family helps family." I did not blink. I did not raise my voice. The word family in Barbara's dictionary had always been a synonym for Amanda's personal bank account. "A family vacation," I repeated. I let the words hang in the heavy air of the room. "The vacation you have been talking about for 6 months. The one I took 2 weeks of paid time off for. The one my children Leo and Sophie have been packing their snow gear for." Barbara waved her free hand dismissively. She finally placed my card on the coffee table just out of my reach. "About that. We need to have an adult conversation, Megan. You and your kids are not coming on this trip." The sheer audacity of the statement would have floored a normal person. But 34 years of being Barbara's daughter had calloused my shock receptors. "I am not coming on this trip," I stated flatly. "The trip that is currently being funded by the credit card you stole from my kitchen counter." "Stole is an ugly word, Megan." "Stop being so dramatic," Barbara snapped. Her eyes narrowed. "I borrowed it for the reservations. And honestly, it is for the best that you sit this one out. Amanda and Terrence are bringing Brayden and Kinsley. Amanda feels that your kids are just too much. They are a bit loud, a bit unruly. Amanda wants a peaceful and luxurious experience in Aspen. Brayden and Kinsley do not want your kids there. They ruin the aesthetic." I stared at her. My children, an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old, who were consistently praised by their teachers for being kind and well-mannered, were ruining the aesthetic for Amanda's spoiled and tablet-addicted brats. So I began piecing the logic together aloud for her to hear. "You took my card without permission. You used it to book a luxury ski vacation in Aspen for yourself, Dad, Amanda, Terrence, and their kids. And you are formally uninviting the person paying for the trip because my children are an inconvenience to Amanda." "You make it sound so mercenary," Barbara huffed. She crossed her legs and looked away. "You make 6 figures, Megan. You have plenty of money. Consider this your contribution to the family. You have always been so selfish with your wealth. Amanda is a stay-at-home mother. She deserves a break. Terrence works hard in security and he needs to unwind. You are just a single mother crunching numbers at a desk. You do not need a luxury ski resort. You can take your kids to the local park. I looked at the card resting on the glass table. I could have snatched it. I could have screamed. I could have demanded she cancel the transactions right then and there. But my mind was already operating 3 steps ahead, analyzing the variables and running the audit. If I took the card back now, she would just play the victim. She would run to my father Thomas and cry about how abusive and greedy I was. She would call Amanda, and they would spend the next year assassinating my character to anyone who would listen. If I exploded, I would be the hysterical and bitter sister who ruined their dream vacation. But I am an auditor. I do not deal in hysterics. I deal in consequences. I see, I said. My voice dropped to a whisper of pure ice. You are right, Mom. Amanda does deserve a break, and Terrence certainly deserves to know exactly what kind of family he married into. Barbara scoffed, missing the threat entirely. Leave Terrence out of this. He is a good man, and he thinks your father paid for this trip as a gift. Do not you dare ruin this for your sister with your jealousy. As an African-American man who served our country, he values respect and honesty above all else. He believes this trip is a well-deserved reward from your father for all of Amanda's hard work raising the kids. I almost laughed out loud at the absurdity. Amanda's hard work consisted of shopping online and complaining to our mother. Terrence was indeed a man of immense integrity. He was a former military officer who now ran security for a major logistics firm. He was direct, honorable, and had absolutely zero tolerance for thieves. My mother and sister were playing a very dangerous game by deceiving a man who made his living detecting fraud and securing assets. They were treating my bank account like a slush fund, while lying straight to the face of a man who would despise them if he knew the truth. I looked down at the silver card gleaming on the table. It represented years of my hard work, late nights auditing corporate accounts and sacrifices I made to provide a stable life for Leo and Sophie after my ex-husband walked out. My mother felt entitled to it simply because she had given birth to me. She felt entitled to strip my children of a vacation to fund her golden child's fantasy life. I did not reach for the card. I let it sit there. It was no longer just a piece of plastic. It was a trap, perfectly baited and waiting to snap shut. I would not dream of ruining this for you, Mom, I said. Right on cue, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed from the hardwood stairs. Amanda descended like a queen, surveying her subjects. She wore a designer cashmere loungewear set that cost more than my first car. At 36, she spent her entire adult life playing the professional victim. She perfectly mirrored our mother's narcissism, but masked it behind a fragile persona. Is she yelling, Mom? Amanda asked. She stepped into the living room and looked at me with pity and triumph. I told you we should not have invited her over. She always makes everything toxic. I'm not yelling, Amanda, I replied. I stood my ground. I was just getting briefed on my involuntary philanthropy. So Aspen, first-class flights, I assume? Amanda smirked. She walked over to pour herself a glass of sparkling water. Obviously. Terrence has a bad back from his military days. He cannot sit and coach. And the kids need room to stretch out. We booked the Diamond Suite at the St. Regis. It has a private hot tub on the balcony. You would not appreciate it anyway, Megan. You are always so stressed about budgets and spreadsheets. You do not know how to live. I calculated the numbers in my head. First-class flights from Seattle to Aspen for 6 people. The Diamond Suite at a peak season resort. VIP ski passes. We were looking at a minimum of $25,000. My Platinum card had a limit of $50,000 explicitly reserved for corporate expenses. They had gone out of their way to max out the luxury. They operated under the delusion that because the card had my name on it, the money was infinite and consequence-free. Did you run the charges yet? I asked. I looked directly at Amanda. Just the deposits? Amanda said smoothly. She took a sip of her water. The resort puts a hold on the card, and the rest is charged at check-in. Do not worry. I linked it to my digital wallet so we can cover the meals and spa treatments while we are there. You are an auditor, Megan. Just write it off as a business expense or whatever it is you do. The financial illiteracy of her statement was staggering. She thought I could write off a $25,000 family vacation on a personal line of credit. She thought the rules of economics did not apply to her because Barbara had spent 3 decades shielding her from reality. You linked my stolen card to your phone, I verified. My tone remained strictly professional. Borrowed, Barbara corrected sharply. Stop using that word, right? Borrowed. I looked between the two of them. My mother looked annoyed by my lack of gratitude for the privilege of funding her favoritism. My sister vibrated with smug satisfaction that she had once again put the lesser sibling in her place. They expected a fight. They primed themselves for a screaming match. They wanted me to cry, to beg, to demand my inclusion so they could reject me again. That was their favorite game. But I refused to play. Okay, I said quietly. Amanda frowned, her brow furrowed. Okay, what? Okay, I repeated. I picked up my purse. I did not touch the credit card on the table. I left it sitting there. It was a shiny silver trap waiting to be sprung. You are right. Leo and Sophie would not enjoy Aspen anyway. They prefer warmer weather. Have a wonderful trip. I hope the Diamond Suite lives up to your expectations. Barbara looked bewildered. She stood up, her cardigan slipped off one shoulder. You are just leaving. You are not going to throw a tantrum. Because if you are planning to call your father and complain, I will stop you right there. Dad knows exactly who you are. Mom, he just does not have the spine to say it, I replied evenly. I have nothing to complain about. You have made your priorities crystal clear. I am respecting your boundaries. Amanda narrowed her eyes. She was deeply suspicious of my compliance. You are not going to cancel the card, are you? Because if you do, the resort will cancel our reservations. Terrence took time off work for this. He would be furious. I am fully aware of Terrence's schedule, I said. I offered a tight and closed-lipped smile. Terrence was an honorable black man who served his country with distinction. As a former military officer who now ran security for a major logistics firm, he demanded absolute honesty from everyone around him. He lived his life by a strict code of ethics and would be completely disgusted to learn his wife was funding his vacation with stolen money. He believed my father paid for this trip out of his own savings. I knew Amanda and Barbara were playing a highly dangerous game by deceiving a man who made his living detecting fraud and securing corporate assets. And no, I will not cancel the reservations. I continued. Enjoy the trip. Truly. I turned on my heel and walked toward the front door. The silence in the house behind me was deafening. They did not know what to do with a Megan who did not fight back. They did not realize that my silence was not surrender. It was the calm before a catastrophic financial storm. As I walked down the driveway to my car, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Amanda. Do not think you can play the martyr here. We all know you are just jealous of my family. Thanks for the trip. I did not reply. I got into my car, locked the doors, and took a deep, stabilizing breath. The hurt was there. The realization that my own mother would rather steal from me than include me cut deep. She viewed my children as a nuisance while elevating Amanda's to royalty. It tore open lingering childhood wounds I thought I had healed, but that hurt was rapidly being incinerated by a cold and calculating fury. They thought they had outsmarted me. They thought they had secured a free luxury vacation by exploiting my sense of familial obligation. But they had made one fatal miscalculation. They had stolen from a woman who monitored bank fraud for a living. I pulled out of the driveway. The tires crunched against the pavement as I left my childhood home behind. I had a lot of work to do. Not fighting, not arguing, just pure and unadulterated auditing. I was going to let them fly to Aspen. I was going to let them check into that Diamond Suite. I was going to let them order the expensive vintage champagne and book the deep tissue spa treatments. I would let them fully consume the stolen services so the crime could not be undone. And then I was going to drop the heavy hammer of the law. The 45-minute commute back to my townhouse in Seattle felt like a tactical debriefing. The rain pounded against my windshield in a steady rhythm that matched the calculated ticking of my brain. I gripped the leather steering wheel tightly, my mind replaying decades of this exact toxic dynamic. It was never just about a single vacation or a stolen piece of plastic. It was about a lifetime of being conditioned to believe my sole purpose was to subsidize Amanda's perfect existence. I was not crying. Tears were an emotional currency my mother fed on to validate her superiority, and I was officially cutting off her supply. I felt only a cold and terrifying clarity. I was no longer the discarded daughter. I was a senior financial auditor, identifying a critical breach in compliance. I remembered when I was 18 years old, I worked double shifts at a local diner to save for my college tuition. Barbara quietly siphoned money from my savings account to pay for Amanda's sorority dues and spring break trips. She told me Amanda needed to network and that my state school education did not require the same elite resources. I remembered when I was 28, recovering from a brutal divorce and juggling an infant and a toddler. I asked my parents for a temporary loan to cover daycare while I studied for my certified public accountant exams. My father Thomas pulled out his checkbook to help me, but Barbara physically stopped his hand. She declared I needed to learn the hard consequences of a failed marriage. A week later, they bought Amanda a brand new luxury sport utility vehicle because her old one lacked cargo space for designer shopping bags. They meticulously trained me to believe my role was to absorb their financial and emotional blows without complaint. Whenever I pushed back against the unfairness, I was labeled the bitter and jealous sister. If I confronted them about stolen money, they manipulated the conversation to make me think I offered it voluntarily. They twisted reality so skillfully that for years I constantly questioned my own sanity. But numbers do not lie. Spreadsheets do not engage in psychological manipulation. I pulled into my driveway and turned off the engine. The house was quiet from the outside. My babysitter was inside with Leo and Sophie, but I needed absolute silence before walking through my front door. I pulled my phone from my purse and opened my banking application. Facial recognition verified my identity, and the secure dashboard loaded on the screen. I navigated straight to the transaction history for my Platinum account. There it was in stark black and white, a pending authorization charge from a luxury travel concierge service for $5,000. Following that, a pending hold from the resort in Aspen for another $8,000. Amanda had locked down the reservations using my personal credit line. My thumb hovered over the screen. It would be incredibly easy to tap the dispute charge button right now. It would instantly decline the holds, cancel the flights, and ruin their trip before it even started. But as an auditor, I understood the precise mechanics of financial fraud and authorization holds. If I disputed the charge, now the bank would block the transaction. The merchant would cancel the booking. Barbara would call me, scream endless abuse, and force my father to liquidate part of his retirement fund to pay for the trip out of pocket to save face. They would still go to Aspen. They would still win. Amanda would get her luxury vacation, and I would forever be painted as the villain who tried to ruin their family bonding time. The laws regarding credit card fraud in the United States are highly specific and completely unforgiving. If a card is stolen and used online for a booking, the merchant absorbs the loss because the card is not physically present. But if the card is physically swiped, or if a digital wallet is used on site at a luxury resort, the legal liability shifts entirely. If I reported the card stolen after they checked in, and after they consumed the non-refundable services, the hotel would be left with a massive unpaid bill for services rendered. Hotels of that caliber do not simply write off $25,000. They demand immediate alternative payment. And if payment is not provided on the spot, they involve local law enforcement for felony theft of services. I checked the dates on the concierge booking details that synced to my email account because they foolishly used my rewards number to get a room upgrade. Their flight was scheduled to depart next Friday at 8 in the morning. They would land in Aspen by noon. Check-in was at exactly 3 in the afternoon. My own flight to Florida for my secret cruise left on Saturday morning. A slow and deliberate smile formed on my face. I opened a new secure folder on my phone and began taking screenshots. I captured the pending transactions, the exact timestamps, and the location data. I documented the Internet Protocol addresses from the initial authorization alerts, which clearly showed the transactions originating from Amanda's home network, not mine. I compiled a digital footprint proving my physical location in Seattle during the time the bookings were made. I was building a watertight and irrefutable case file. When the hammer finally dropped, there would be no legal loopholes. There would be no technicalities. There would be absolutely no way for Barbara to charm her way out of a federal offense. I closed the banking application and opened my email client. I drafted a highly detailed message to my bank's dedicated fraud department, outlining the exact nature of the stolen card and the unauthorized digital wallet link. I did not hit send. I just saved it securely in my drafts, ready to be deployed at the exact right second. I closed the browser window and stepped away from my desk. The house was warm and smelled faintly of cinnamon and baking apples. My babysitter, Mrs. Higgins, was sitting at the kitchen counter helping Leo with his math homework. Sophie was sprawled on the living room floor, carefully coloring a large picture of a pirate ship. Mommy, Sophie cheered. She dropped her crayons and ran to hug my legs. Look, I drew the ship we are going on. I knelt down and hugged her tightly. I breathed in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. It is beautiful, sweetie. It looks just like the real thing. Are Grandma and Aunt Amanda still coming? Leo asked. He looked up from his fractions. Braden said they were going to the snow instead. He told me on his headset while we were playing video games online yesterday. I stood up slowly and gave Mrs. Higgins a deeply grateful nod. No, buddy. It is just going to be the three of us. A special trip exactly how we planned it. This was the plot twist Barbara and Amanda had completely missed in their arrogant assumption of my life. A month ago, after a particularly grueling audit season at my firm, I secured a massive performance bonus. I did not tell my family. I knew better than to share financial victories with people who viewed my bank account as communal property. Instead, I booked the ultimate dream vacation for my children. A 10-day VIP Disney cruise through the Caribbean. I paid cash for a massive suite character dining experiences and private island excursions. Everything was fully funded, legitimately earned, and completely debt-free. I had originally and foolishly thought about inviting my parents. I hinted to Barbara that I was planning something big for the holidays. But her immediate response was to complain about how Amanda kids had never been to Disney. She subtly pressured me to upgrade my plans and foot the bill for her golden child entire family. When I politely refused to fund a luxury trip for 8 people, the atmosphere turned highly toxic. That refusal led directly to her stealing my card for the Aspen trip. Barbara thought she was punishing me by formally uninviting me from the mountain resort. She had no idea I already held non-refundable first-class tickets to Miami and a luxury ocean cabin waiting for me. After paying Mrs. Higgins and getting the kids settled with a movie in the living room, I retreated to my home office. I locked the door and opened my luggage. I meticulously packed sundresses, swimsuits, and sunscreen. The contrast between my reality and their delusion was staggering. Amanda and Barbara were currently packing heavy winter gear for a trip built entirely on federal wire fraud. I was packing for a tropical paradise built on honest labor. They believed they were asserting their dominance over the family failure. In reality, they were simply putting on the financial handcuffs I had quietly laid out for them. Over the next 4 days, the family group text chat became a masterclass in psychological warfare. Amanda posted non-stop updates about her packing process to ensure I felt fully excluded. She sent a photo of 2 expensive children's ski suits laid out on her bed. Just bought the cutest designer ski suits for the kids, she typed. Aspen bound. So blessed. Barbara chimed in immediately to reinforce the manipulation. So grateful for this family time. Terrence is going to love the deep tissue spa package I booked for him. It is exactly what he deserves for working so hard to protect us. I read every single message. I did not mute the chat. I watched them dig their own graves, completely oblivious to the fact that they were dancing on an active landmine. I took screenshots of every boastful text, every photo of stolen luxury, and every confirmation of their travel plans. I added them all to my encrypted fraud folder. Not once did my father interject to ask how I was doing. Not once did Terrence message the group, though I knew he was likely kept entirely in the dark about the funding source. Terrence was an honorable man who served his country with distinction. He was notoriously strict about finances. He insisted on paying his own way and lived by a rigid moral code. If he knew his wife was using a stolen card to fund his ski passes, he would have canceled the trip himself and demanded an immediate divorce. Amanda knew this. That is why she lied to him and claimed my father was treating the whole family to a holiday getaway. She expertly manipulated her husband's trust to facilitate her own greed. She convinced a man of high integrity that he was accepting a generous gift, not participating in a felony. Thursday night finally arrived. It was the eve of their departure. I put Leo and Sophie to bed early, making sure their small suitcases were waiting right by the front door. We had an early flight to catch to Florida the next morning. After the house went completely quiet, I poured myself a glass of red wine, sat at my kitchen island, and opened my laptop one last time. I logged into my banking portal and checked the dashboard. The pending holds from the travel concierge and the Aspen Resort were still sitting there untouched and waiting to be processed into finalized charges. Tomorrow morning they would board their flight. Tomorrow afternoon they would walk into the lobby of that ultra-luxury hotel. They would hand over their identification and authorize the final release of my funds. I took a slow sip of my wine. The rich flavor grounded me in the present moment. Enjoy the flight, Mom, I thought to myself. It is going to be a very bumpy landing. I closed my laptop and finally went upstairs to get some very well-deserved deep sleep tonight. Friday morning arrived with the sharp ring of my alarm at 5. I woke up feeling more rested than I had in years. The house was quiet, and the Seattle rain beat a familiar rhythm against my bedroom window. I moved through my morning routine with military precision. I woke Leo, and Sophie got them dressed in their travel clothes and finalized our luggage. We were out the door and inside an airport transport vehicle by 6:30. As we rode toward the airport, my phone vibrated in my purse. I pulled it out and looked at the lock screen. It was an automated fraud alert from my bank. A charge for $400 at an upscale airport breakfast lounge had just been authorized. Amanda and Barbara were officially awake and spending my money. I swiped the notification away. I did not log into the banking application just yet. I needed to maintain strict emotional discipline. It takes a massive amount of psychological restraint to watch people you share genetic material with actively steal from you in real time. The natural human instinct is to react immediately. The urge to call the bank, scream at the fraud department, and shut down the card right there at the departure gate was incredibly strong. If I made that call right now, their flight would not be affected because the airline tickets were already paid. But their luxury car service in Aspen would decline. Their hotel check-in would fail. They would simply turn around, buy a coach ticket home on my father's dime, and play the ultimate victims. They would claim a bank error ruined their family vacation. I could not allow that. I needed them to cross state lines. I needed them to check into the resort. I needed them to physically consume the stolen services. In the eyes of the law, intent to commit fraud is one thing, but felony theft of services is a completely different beast. Once they occupied that diamond suite, the financial liability would fall entirely on them. We made it through airport security and found our gate for the flight to Miami. Leo and Sophie sat by the window watching the planes take off. I bought them breakfast and sat down with a black coffee. I opened the group chat. Amanda had just uploaded a photo. She and Barbara were holding crystal glasses filled with mimosas. The caption read, "Starting this vacation right. So incredibly blessed." I zoomed in on the photo. In the background, I could see my father Thomas reading a newspaper. Terrence was sitting next to him, looking focused on a sports broadcast on the lounge television. Terrence had absolutely no idea his luxurious getaway was funded by a stolen piece of plastic. He was a man who worked hard, paid his taxes, and protected his family. He trusted his wife. He trusted his mother-in-law. He believed he was stepping onto a plane for a fully paid family gift. I felt a brief flash of sympathy for him, but I quickly pushed it aside. The collateral damage was unavoidable. Our flight to Florida boarded on time. I purchased the in-flight internet package specifically to monitor the financial bloodbath. At 30,000 feet in the air, I opened my laptop and pulled up the live transaction ledger. For the next 5 hours, I watched my mother and sister dig their own graves with my credit limit. At noon, Pacific time, a charge for $800 appeared from a premium black car service in Colorado. They had landed. They were riding through the snow-covered mountains in a heated sport utility vehicle. An hour later, a massive charge hit the account. $5,200 at an elite ski outfitter. Amanda was not just renting standard equipment, she was buying designer snow gear, custom-fitted boots, and premium lift tickets for the entire group. She swiped my stolen card through her digital wallet without a single second of hesitation. Every time a new charge popped up, my heart rate remained completely steady. I was not angry anymore. I was simply collecting data points. As a financial auditor, I recognized exactly how sloppy Amanda was being. She was leaving a digital footprint a mile wide. She used her own phone to process the transactions. She did not use a virtual private network. She tied the payments directly to her personal device identification number. She was practically gift-wrapping the evidence for the federal investigators. At 2:30 in the afternoon, Sophie fell asleep on my shoulder. Leo was playing a game on his tablet. I looked out the airplane window at the endless blue sky, feeling an incredible sense of peace. The turbulence of my childhood was finally behind me. I was no longer the scapegoat. I was the architect of their reckoning. Then, at precisely 3:15, the notification I had been waiting for flashed across my screen. The pending authorization hold from the resort in Aspen vanished. In its place, a hard and finalized charge posted to the ledger, $12,500. They had reached the front desk. Amanda had handed over her identification. The hotel staff had processed the payment for the Diamond Suite. They were officially checked in. The bellhop was likely carrying their designer luggage up to the room at this exact moment. They were walking into a suite with a private hot tub on the balcony, completely convinced they had gotten away with the perfect crime. They had crossed the threshold of no return. They had legally consumed the stolen funds. The trap was locked. The steel doors had slammed shut behind them. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. The psychological restraint had paid off perfectly. I opened my email client and navigated to the drafts folder. I reviewed the highly detailed message I had prepared for my bank's dedicated fraud department. It contained the internet protocol addresses, the transaction timestamps, the physical location proof of my presence in Seattle, and now on a flight to Florida, and a formal declaration of theft. I connected to the secure banking portal to initiate the emergency fraud protocol. I clicked on the finalized hotel charge. The screen prompted me with a confirmation box asking if I was sure I wanted to report this transaction as completely unauthorized. I stared at that confirmation box for exactly 10 seconds. I thought about all the times Barbara told me I was inadequate. I thought about Amanda laughing while she planned to steal my inheritance. I thought about my ex-husband betraying me and my family blaming me for the divorce. Every insult, every slight, every moment of financial abuse culminated right here in this digital space. They believed I would always remain silent to keep the peace. They relied on my submission to fuel their entitlement. They were terribly wrong. I reached down to my trackpad. I moved the cursor directly over the red button labeled Report Fraudulent Activity. I clicked it. The system loaded the next page, prompting me for the immediate cancellation of the physical card and all associated digital wallets. I was ready to make the phone call that would turn their snowy paradise into an absolute nightmare. I dialed the toll-free number on the back of my debit card. I connected to the aircraft's satellite network to make the important call. The line rang twice before a crisp, professional voice answered. "Welcome to Platinum Services. This is David. How can I assist you today?" "Hi, David. My name is Megan Williams. I need to report a stolen physical credit card and massive fraudulent charges currently processing on my account in Aspen, Colorado." I am physically located on a commercial flight to Miami, Florida right now. The representative's tone shifted instantly to high alert. I am very sorry to hear that, Ms. Williams. Let us get this locked down immediately. I see the charge for $12,500 at the luxury resort just posted a few minutes ago, along with several other high-ticket items. Yes, I said smoothly. My physical card was stolen from my home in Seattle earlier this week. It appears the thief has linked it to a mobile wallet and is attempting to use it for a luxury vacation across state lines. I need the card permanently canceled. I need the current charges reversed as fraud. And I need a hard block placed on any further authorization attempts from that merchant or any other single vendor. Consider it done, Mom, David said. The sound of rapid typing echoed through the phone line. Because the charge was just processed, we will initiate a chargeback protocol immediately. The merchant in Aspen will be notified that the payment method is fraudulent and the funds will be voided. I am also putting a hard security lock on your entire profile. No transactions will clear without verbal two-factor authentication from you directly. Thank you so much, David. I will also be submitting a formal police report in Seattle for the theft of the physical card, I added. This ensured the absolute severity of the situation was fully documented on the federal banking side. That is absolutely necessary, ma'am, David replied. The card is now completely dead. The merchant in Colorado will receive the reversal notification within the hour. I thanked him and ended the call. A profound silence settled over me despite the dull roar of the jet engines. It was done. The domino had been tipped. There was no going back and no undoing it. Within the next 60 minutes, the billing department at one of the most exclusive resorts in the country was going to realize they had a family of 6 occupying their diamond suite with a voided and fraudulent payment method. I closed my laptop and slid it into my carry-on bag. I looked over at Leo and Sophie, who were happily watching an animated movie on the seatback screens. We were thousands of miles away, heading toward sunshine and turquoise waters. Meanwhile, in the snow-covered mountains of Colorado, the illusion was about to shatter. I could perfectly picture the scene unfolding in the Diamond Suite. Amanda and Barbara were unpacking their designer luggage right now. They were admiring the vaulted ceilings, the stone fireplace, and the private hot tub overlooking the slopes. They felt invincible. They believed they had outsmarted the quiet and boring auditor sister. Thomas was probably relaxing on the plush sofa, completely unaware that his retirement funds were about to be forcefully liquidated to keep his wife out of a federal holding cell. Terrence, my fiercely principled brother-in-law, was arranging his ski gear. He trusted Amanda completely. He believed this extravagant getaway was a generous gift from his wealthy in-laws. He had zero tolerance for dishonesty and despised anyone who took advantage of others. The moment he discovered his wife had turned him into an unwitting accomplice to grand larceny, his reaction would be apocalyptic. I imagined Amanda picking up her phone to order a $200 bottle of vintage champagne from room service to celebrate their arrival. She would tap her screen to authorize the payment through her digital wallet. She would wait for the satisfying chime of a successful transaction. Instead, she would see a red exclamation mark. Payment declined. She would probably scoff and try again. She would assume it was a minor glitch, a poor connection. She would try a third time. Declined. Then the front desk phone in the Diamond Suite would ring. The concierge would ask her to come down to the lobby to resolve a minor issue with her payment method. That would be the exact moment the cold sweat of panic would break through her smug facade. The flight attendants announced our initial descent into Miami. I fastened my seatbelt and helped Sophie with hers. The tropical heat was waiting for us just beyond the cabin doors. We landed smoothly and made our way through the bustling terminal to claim our luggage. The humid Florida air hit my face as we stepped outside to find our private shuttle to the cruise port. My trip was paid for legally. We checked into our hotel room to rest before boarding the Disney ship the next morning. The kids jumped on the beds with pure joy. I stood on the balcony breathing in the salty ocean breeze. I felt a profound sense of liberation. I had spent my entire life shrinking myself to make my mother and sister comfortable. But standing there looking out at the water, I knew that era was permanently over. I walked back into the hotel room and sat on the edge of the bed. It was time. I reached into my purse and pulled out my personal phone. I disabled airplane mode and watched the cellular signal bars light up. I waited for the network to sync. The device remained silent for exactly 3 seconds. A relentless stream of notifications flooded the display. The phone vibrated violently in my hand as the digital backlog poured in. The massive inferno in Aspen had finally ignited into a glorious, blazing reality. The notification badge on my screen climbed with dizzying speed. 36 missed calls, 42 text messages, 7 voicemails. The numbers ticked upward as my device struggled to process the sheer volume of panic transmitting across the country. I walked out to the hotel balcony and let the warm Florida evening wash over me while the digital chaos unfolded in my hand. Tomorrow morning, we would board the massive cruise ship heading straight for the Bahamas, but tonight, I had a front row seat to the absolute destruction of my mother's perfect winter getaway. The group chat timeline painted a vivid picture of escalating horror. The first message arrived at 4:15 in the afternoon Pacific time. It was from Amanda. "Megan, call your bank immediately. The concierge here is trying to run the card for our incidentals, and it keeps getting declined. Fix this before Terrence gets back from returning the rental car. He hates waiting." Barbara chimed in. "Megan, this is not a joke. Answer your phone. The front desk manager is being incredibly rude to us. They are claiming the card is completely invalid. Call customer service and clear the fraud alert. I told them you were my daughter, and I have permission to use it." By 4:45, the tone shifted from annoyance to absolute panic. Amanda texted again. "Megan, the manager, just said the initial deposit was reversed. They said the card was reported stolen. What did you do? Answer the phone right now. We are standing in the lobby and everyone is staring at us." At 5:15, my father Thomas sent a message. "Megan, please pick up. The resort is demanding an alternative form of payment for $12,500. We do not have that kind of cash. Your mother is hyperventilating. You need to call the hotel and authorize the payment manually. Do not ruin this trip for your sister." Amanda sent one final message just before my phone reconnected. "You psychotic, vindictive person. You planned this. You set us up. Call the bank and reverse the stolen report right now, or I swear I will make you pay for this." Terrence is walking into the lobby. "Fix this right now." I smiled at the screen. I opened my voicemail inbox. Listening to their voices provided a much richer layer of context to their despair. I tapped play on the first message from Barbara. Her voice was a mixture of angry authority and underlying fear. "Megan Elizabeth Williams, pick up this phone immediately. We are sitting in the lobby of the St. Regis, and they are refusing to give us our room keys. They say the payment was rejected as fraudulent. I know you are mad about not coming, but this is childish. Call the bank and authorize the charge before Terrence sees us sitting here like vagrants." I deleted the message and played the next one. It was Amanda, and she was practically shrieking into the receiver. "Are you crazy? Are you actually insane? The manager just told me the card was reported physically stolen and canceled by the Federal Fraud Department. You told them it was stolen. We have no way to pay for this room. We have no way to pay for the flights back. Terrence is going to find out. Call the bank and tell them it was a misunderstanding. Do it now, Megan." The third voicemail was a chaotic blend of background noise. I could hear the distinct sound of a luxury hotel lobby. Soft piano music played while my mother cried hysterically in the background. Thomas was speaking into the phone. His voice was low and harsh. "Megan, you have gone too far this time. Your mother is humiliated. Amanda is crying. The hotel security is standing near our luggage. They are threatening to call the local authorities because they believe we are attempting to defraud the resort. You need to fix this. We are family. You do not treat family this way." I listened to his words carefully. He had the absolute audacity to lecture me on family values while standing in a luxury resort he booked using a stolen credit card. He demanded loyalty from the daughter he had excluded. He expected me to shield him from the consequences of his own wife's felony. I locked my phone and set it on the patio table. The warm breeze ruffled my hair. I looked back inside the hotel room. Leo and Sophie were laughing at a television show entirely safe and deeply loved. We were going to wake up tomorrow and board a massive ship bound for the beautiful Bahamas. We were going to eat fresh fruit on private beaches and swim in crystal clear waters. I had paid for everything with money I earned through years of grueling corporate audits and late nights reviewing financial statements. Meanwhile, my mother and sister were trapped in a freezing mountain town with no money and no escape. They were surrounded by luxury they could not afford, and faced with a reality they could not manipulate. The beautiful part of bank fraud is the absolute lack of emotion in the system. A bank does not care if you are the golden child. A bank does not care if you throw tantrums or cry in a lobby. A bank only cares about unauthorized transactions and strict federal regulations. They were about to learn that their actions had very real consequences. I picked up the phone again and just stared at the dark blank screen. Terrence was a man who demanded absolute truth. He had spent years in the military learning how to identify threats and neutralize them. He protected his family with unyielding dedication. He believed his wife was a truly good person. He believed my parents were generous benefactors. The illusion was shattering around him at this exact moment. I wanted to see his reaction when he finally understood the magnitude of their deception. The phone vibrated violently in my hand again. The caller identification displayed my mother's name. I took a deep breath, steadied my pulse, and tapped the green accept button. I brought the phone to my ear, but remained entirely silent. I wanted her to speak first. Megan Barbara shrieked. Her frantic energy forced me to hold the device away from my ear. Call the bank right now. Tell them you authorized the charges. The general manager here is treating us like criminals. He says our reservations are canceled and the police are on their way. Fix this immediately. I cannot do that, Mom, I replied. My tone was flat and perfectly modulated the exact voice I used when explaining compliance failures. The card was reported stolen because it was stolen. I did not steal it, she screamed. I am your mother. I borrowed it for a family emergency. You have plenty of money. You are just throwing a jealous tantrum because Amanda did not want your kids ruining her vacation. Now pick up the other line and tell the credit card company it was a huge misunderstanding before Terrence finds out what is happening. It is not a misunderstanding, I said smoothly. Let me explain exactly what is happening right now, Mom. You entered my home and removed a physical credit card from my wallet without my consent. That is petty theft. However you cross state lines with that stolen card, that elevates the crime. Stop quoting your boring accounting rules at me, Barbara yelled. In the background, I could hear Amanda sobbing loudly. Just unlock the account. I am not quoting accounting rules, I corrected her. I am quoting federal law. You and Amanda used a stolen financial instrument to authorize $12,500 at a luxury resort. You spent another $5,200 at a ski outfitter. In the United States, utilizing a stolen credit card across state lines for an amount exceeding $5,000 constitutes felony wire fraud and grand larceny. There was a brief pause on the line. The heavy legal terms seemed to finally pierce through her thick layer of narcissistic delusion. But she immediately pivoted back to gaslighting. You are exaggerating to scare me, Barbara stammered. Her voice lost a fraction of its volume, but none of its entitlement. No bank is going to arrest a grandmother for booking a family ski trip. You just have to tell them you permitted me to hold the card. If I tell the bank I permitted you to use the card after filing a federal fraud report, I would be committing perjury and actively participating in bank fraud, I explained calmly. I watched the palm trees sway outside my hotel room. I would lose my certified public accountant license. I would lose my job as a senior financial auditor. I am not going to destroy my career and risk federal prison to subsidize Amanda's luxury vacation. You are destroying this family, Barbara wailed. The panic was fully setting in now. Amanda is hyperventilating in the lobby. The hotel security guards are standing right next to our luggage. They are refusing to let us leave the property until the balance is paid in full. We do not have $20,000 in cash. You have to save us. I do not have to do anything, I replied. You made your choices. You stole my property. You explicitly told me that my children and I were forbidden from attending a trip funded by my own labor because my kids would ruin the aesthetic. You brought this entirely on yourself. We are your family, she cried out. You owe us. We raised you. We put a roof over your head. You owe us for everything you have. I owe you absolutely nothing, I stated. My voice was a block of solid ice. I paid my own way through college by working double shifts while you bought Amanda designer clothes. I built my career from the ground up while you constantly belittled my profession. You never supported me. You only tolerated my existence when you needed someone to fund Amanda's lifestyle. That automatic teller machine is permanently closed. Megan, please, Barbara pleaded. Her tone shifted from demanding to desperate. Terrence is walking back into the lobby right now. He went to park the rental vehicle. If he sees the police here, he will ask questions. He will leave Amanda. You know how strict he is about the law. He will never forgive her for this. You are going to ruin her marriage. Amanda ruined her own marriage the second she decided to commit a felony and lie to her honorable husband, I countered. Terrence served this country. He built a career in security and loss prevention. He operates on absolute integrity. He deserves to know that his wife and mother-in-law are committing credit card fraud behind his back. You are a monster, Barbara hissed. The venom in her voice was palpable. You planned this. You let us fly all the way to Colorado just to humiliate us. You are sick. I simply allowed you to face the natural consequences of your own actions, I replied effortlessly. You swiped the card, Mom. You booked the diamond suite. You ordered the expensive champagne. Enjoy the aesthetic. I will never forgive you for this, Barbara snarled. I will make sure everyone in Seattle knows what a greedy and vindictive daughter you are. I will tell the entire extended family that you abandoned your mother in a freezing mountain town. Tell them whatever you want, I said. I am sure the formal police report and the grand larceny charges will provide a very interesting counter-narrative for the family group chat. I heard frantic shuffling on the phone line. Barbara was breathing heavily, completely out of arguments and entirely out of leverage. The reality of the cold, hard numbers had finally crushed her emotional manipulation. She could not gaslight a federal fraud alert. She could not guilt-trip a luxury resort billing department. She was trapped in a nightmare of her own making, and she knew it. There was a muffled scuffle over the speaker. I heard Amanda crying hysterically in the background, begging someone to fix the situation before Terrence walked through the doors. Then the audio shifted abruptly. The phone was wrestled away from my mother. Panicked breathing filled the receiver. A new voice came on the line. It was deep and frantic. It was my father, Thomas, finally stepping into the inferno. Megan, this has gone far enough, Thomas barked into the receiver. He tried to summon the booming baritone of paternal authority he had used to govern our household for 3 decades. Stop this nonsense right now and call the bank. We are in a highly public place, and you are causing a massive scene. I am not causing anything, Dad, I replied smoothly. I am sitting on a hotel balcony in Florida, thousands of miles away. You and your wife and your golden child are causing a scene by attempting to defraud a luxury resort with a stolen credit card. It is not stolen, Thomas growled. His voice dropped to an urgent and furious whisper. Your mother took it from the counter. We are family. We do not use words like fraud and theft. We share resources. You are making a mountain out of a molehill because your feelings are hurt. I will write you a check for the full amount the second we get back to Seattle. Now unlock the account before the police arrive. I leaned back in my chair and watched a seagull glide over the palm trees. You cannot write me a check, Dad. I did your taxes last April. I know exactly what your finances look like. Your retirement account took a massive hit when you decided to fund the down payment on Amanda's new house. Your liquid savings are practically non-existent because Barbara insists on maintaining a country club membership you cannot afford. You do not have $25,000 sitting in a checking account to reimburse me. You knew they could not afford this trip. You knew they took my card to pay for it. You let them do it anyway. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. For my entire life, Thomas had enabled Barbara's behavior. He was the quiet accomplice, the man who looked the other way, while his wife and youngest daughter financially and emotionally drained everyone around them. He bought the peace in his household by sacrificing my well-being, but he could not buy his way out of a federal wire fraud charge. Megan, listen to me, Thomas pleaded. The false authority evaporated from his voice. He sounded like a terrified old man. We have to protect the family honor. Do you understand what will happen if hotel security arrests your mother in the middle of the lobby? The humiliation will destroy us. Terrence is a proud black man who served his country. He is a director of security. He built his entire career on law and order. He despises criminals. If he finds out his wife and mother-in-law are committing financial fraud, he will leave Amanda. It will break up their family. Braden and Kinsley will grow up in a broken home. You cannot do that to your niece and nephew. I felt a brief flicker of heat in my chest, a phantom echo of the guilt they had programmed into me since childhood. But I quickly extinguished it with cold and hard logic. I am not breaking up Amanda's family, I stated clearly. Amanda is breaking up her own family. She lied to her honorable husband. She convinced him that you were paying for this lavish vacation out of the kindness of your heart. She used him as an unwitting pawn in a felony. If Terrence divorces her, it will be the direct result of her own pathological dishonesty. You are enabling her destruction by demanding I cover up her crimes. I am asking you for mercy, Thomas begged, his voice cracked. I am your father. I am begging you to help us. We will figure out the money later. Just get these security guards away from us. They are holding our luggage. The manager is dialing the local precinct. Please, Megan, do not let your mother go to jail. A real father would have protected me from theft, I replied. My voice was steady and absolute. A real father would have stopped his wife from stealing his daughter's credit card. A real father would have stood up and said it was wrong to ban my children from a family vacation just because they ruined Amanda's aesthetic. You sat back and watched them abuse me for 34 years. You never once intervened. You chose your side a long time ago. I am simply letting you live with the consequences of your choice. You are acting like a sociopath, Thomas hissed. The desperation morphed into vicious resentment. You have no empathy. You are punishing us because you are miserable and alone. I am not alone, I countered. I am with Leo and Sophie. We are safe and we are happy. We are going to wake up tomorrow and board a luxury cruise ship paid for with honest money. I am enforcing a financial boundary to protect my children from people who view us as disposable assets. If you consider that sociopathic, then you clearly do not understand the definition of the word. I heard the sound of heavy boots clicking against polished marble floors through the phone's audio. A new wave of absolute terror erupted in the background. Barbara started sobbing hysterically. "Oh my God," Thomas whispered into the receiver. His breathing grew rapid and shallow. Terrence is walking through the front doors. He sees the security guards. He is looking right at us. Megan, I am begging you one last time. Clear the charges. Tell the bank it was a mistake. Tell them right now. I am hanging up now, Dad, I said. I highly advise you to retain a competent defense attorney. Tell Terrence the truth before the police do it for you. Enjoy your vacation. I pulled the phone away from my ear and pressed the red button to end the call. The line went dead. I placed the phone face down on the table and let out a long breath. The final tie of familial obligation had just been severed. I felt no remorse. I felt no sorrow. I felt only the supreme satisfaction of a ledger that had finally been balanced. My father had spent his life shielding his wife and favorite daughter from reality. Today, reality had arrived in the lobby of the St. Regis Resort, and it demanded payment in full. I stood up from the patio chair and walked back inside my hotel room. My children were giggling at the television, completely insulated from the toxic explosion occurring in Colorado. I poured myself a glass of iced water and smiled. The enabler had played his final card and lost. The stage was now perfectly set for Terrence to discover exactly who he had married. The honorable former military officer was about to face a massive collision of integrity and deception. The true reckoning was just beginning. My phone screen stayed dark for less than a minute. Then the device lit up again, buzzing intensely against the patio table. This time, the caller identification did not display my mother or my father. It was a video call from Terrence himself. He must have seized my father's phone or demanded answers the moment he recognized the sheer panic radiating from his in-laws. I accepted the call immediately. I disabled my camera but left the audio active. Megan Terrence spoke. His deep and authoritative voice boomed through the speaker. He sounded confused but firmly in control of his emotions. I just walked into the main lobby. Your mother is in tears on a sofa. Your sister is screaming at a hotel manager about a bank error. Your father looks like he is about to pass out from a heart attack. They are telling me there is a technical glitch with the vacation funds, and the hotel is being entirely unreasonable. But the security director here happens to be a former colleague of mine. He just pulled me aside privately. He told me a federal fraud alert was triggered on the payment method used to secure our rooms. What exactly is going on here? I respected Terrence far too much to lie to him. He was a man who operated strictly on facts and evidence. Terrence, I need you to listen to me very carefully, I instructed. My tone was purely professional. There is no banking glitch. There is absolutely no misunderstanding. Amanda and Barbara stole my physical credit card from my house in Seattle earlier this week. They linked it to a digital wallet on Amanda's phone. They used my stolen credit line to fund this entire luxury trip without my knowledge or consent. Total silence fell on the line. I could practically hear the gears turning in his highly trained and analytical mind. He was a professional security expert. The terrible pieces were rapidly snapping into place. They told me Thomas paid for this trip, Terrence said. His voice dropped a full octave. It grew dangerously quiet. It was the precise tone of a military veteran realizing he had just been ambushed. Amanda looked me directly in the eye and said your father wanted to treat the whole family to a ski trip to celebrate my recent promotion at the logistics firm. My father does not have $25,000 to spend on a luxury vacation, I clarified bluntly. They maxed out my corporate platinum account. I discovered the theft and officially reported it to federal banking authorities. The charges have been completely reversed. The card is permanently dead. The hotel is currently demanding immediate payment because your family is occupying a diamond suite they absolutely cannot afford. I heard Terrence exhale a sharp and heavy breath. Are you telling me my wife committed credit card fraud? Yes, I confirmed without a single ounce of hesitation. And my mother helped her do it. My father knew all about it and actively enabled the crime. They deliberately excluded my children and me from this trip. Barbara explicitly told me my kids would ruin Amanda's aesthetic. Then they took my stolen money to fund your first-class flights and your expensive spa packages, Megan Terrence said. The anger was now simmering palpably just beneath the surface of his professional restraint. Do you have concrete proof of this? I have extensive proof, I replied confidently. I have the internet protocol addresses from the unauthorized transactions. The data clearly shows the purchases originating from Amanda's home network. I have certified bank statements, and most importantly, I have a clear recording from the security camera in my living room. I paused to let the massive weight of that statement sink in. I caught my mother on video holding my stolen card like a trophy, I continued. She openly admitted to taking it to fund your vacation. I have the entire conversation saved to an encrypted cloud drive, Terrence. I know you are a man of absolute integrity. I know you would never knowingly participate in a felony. That is why I am telling you the truth right now. They used your honorable reputation as a shield to commit grand larceny. More silence followed. It was the terrifying calm that always precedes a massive explosion. Send me that video, Terrence demanded. His voice was no longer that of a brother-in-law. It was the stern voice of a lead investigator demanding hard evidence. Send it to my personal email right now. Do not copy Amanda. Do not copy your parents. I need to see it with my own eyes. I will send it immediately, I promised. But Terrence, you need to understand something else. My father just spent the last 10 minutes on the phone begging me to unfreeze the account. He tried to use your marriage as leverage against me. He told me that if you found out about the fraud, you would divorce Amanda and break up your family. He wanted me to become a willing co-conspirator in federal wire fraud, just to protect Amanda from your righteous anger." A harsh and humorless laugh escaped Terrence's throat. Thomas tried to use my personal integrity as a bargaining chip to cover up a felony. He actually thought you would break the law just to keep me in the dark. That is exactly what he did, I confirmed. They believe the rules do not apply to them. They believe they can simply manipulate their way out of any consequence by using family loyalty as a weapon. Not this time, Terrence stated. The absolute finality in his voice sent a shiver of pure satisfaction down my spine. I served multiple tours in combat zones, Megan. I built my entire career securing assets and protecting innocent people from thieves. I will not sleep in a bed paid for with stolen money. I will not break bread with criminals, and I absolutely will not allow my children to witness their mother behaving like a common crook. The local police might already be on their way to the resort, I warned him gently. The hotel manager was actively dialing the authorities when I hung up on my father a few minutes ago. Let them come, Terrence replied coldly. I will not interfere with a lawful police investigation. I am going to review your security footage. I am going to pack my bags. I am going to pack Braden and Kinsley's bags. And then I am going to have a very serious conversation with my wife. Thank you for understanding, Terrence. I am truly sorry that you were dragged into their terrible deception. You have absolutely nothing to apologize for, Megan. You protected your financial assets and you protected your children. You did exactly what any responsible adult should do. I will handle things on this end. The call disconnected. I lowered my phone and looked out at the vibrant Florida sunset. The ultimate threat had not been an empty bluff. I had delivered the payload directly to the one man capable of burning Amanda's false reality to the ground. By looping Terrence into the reality of the situation, I effectively bypassed all of Barbara's emotional manipulation. There was no spinning this narrative. There was no gaslighting a man who demanded hard evidence and operated on an uncompromising moral code. My mother and sister had spent their entire lives operating under the assumption that they were the smartest people in every room. They believed their charm and extreme entitlement could override any basic law of society. But they had tragically underestimated two vital factors. First, they underestimated the clinical precision of a senior financial auditor. Second, they underestimated the immovable integrity of a man who refused to compromise his honor for a luxury vacation. The trip they had stolen from me was officially over. The consequences were no longer just financial. They were deeply personal and utterly devastating. I slipped my phone back into my bag and walked inside to join my kids. My part in this battle was finished. The inevitable explosion in Aspen was entirely out of my hands now. I was finally ready to enjoy my hard-earned peace. The next morning, the bright Florida sun poured through the hotel curtains, signaling the start of a perfect day. Leo and Sophie were already jumping on their beds, completely thrilled to head to the cruise terminal for our tropical vacation. I ordered room service for breakfast and sat on the balcony with a fresh cup of coffee. I had promised myself I would ignore my device, but human curiosity is a powerful force. I opened my phone to check my messages one last time before boarding the ship and disconnecting from the mainland. A new batch of voicemails had populated overnight. Amanda had apparently lost her grip on reality entirely. She had utilized a terrifyingly simple and desperate tactic. She called my number, put her phone on speaker, and simply let the recording capture the live implosion occurring at the resort reception desk. She wanted me to hear their suffering in real time. She wanted to weaponize her public humiliation to force my immediate compliance. It was a spectacular miscalculation. I tapped play on the first audio file and let the cinematic disaster unfold. The recording started with the unmistakable ambient sounds of a high-altitude luxury ski resort lobby. I could hear a crackling fireplace, the soft murmur of wealthy guests, and the sharp clinking of heavy snow boots against polished stone floors. Then Amanda's voice pierced through the background noise. Her tone was venomous and frantic. Megan, I am leaving this message so you can hear exactly what you are doing to your own flesh and blood, Amanda shrieked into the receiver. You are a vile and disgusting person. We are standing here in our travel gear and they are treating us like common criminals. Fix this right now, or I will personally sue you for emotional distress and financial damages. Before Amanda could hurl another baseless insult, a new voice entered the recording. It was a man with a crisp and uncompromising tone. He identified himself as the general manager of the property. "Ma'am, I need to ask you to lower your voice," the manager stated firmly. "You are disturbing the other guests in the lobby." "As I have already explained to you 3 times, the payment method you provided has been flagged by federal banking authorities as stolen. The primary cardholder has officially reported the physical card as stolen, and the bank has completely voided the $12,500 transaction you attempted to process through your mobile device." I took a slow sip of my coffee. The audio quality was exceptional. I could hear Barbara hyperventilating in the background, struggling to maintain her composure. "This is a massive misunderstanding," Barbara pleaded with the manager. Her usual haughty demeanor had completely evaporated. "My daughter is a senior financial auditor. She makes 6 figures. She authorized this trip for us. She is just having a temporary mental breakdown because she is a bitter single mother who feels left out. Please just run the card again manually. I promise the funds will clear." "Ma'am, the card is dead," the manager replied. He sounded completely unfazed by Barbara's dramatic performance. Furthermore, attempting to process a card that has been federally flagged as stolen is a severe criminal offense. At this point, we require immediate alternative payment for the balances currently owed. You have utilized our concierge services and your luggage has already been delivered to the Diamond Suite. You owe a minimum of $20,000 to cover the room deposit and the associated vendor fees for the luxury ski outfitter you visited earlier today. If you cannot provide a valid credit card in your own name right now, I will be forced to contact the local police department to report a theft of services." The sheer panic in Amanda's voice peaked. She grabbed the phone closer to her mouth. "Do you hear this, Megan? Do you hear what you are doing to us? Give them your override code. Tell them you gave me the card." I smiled at the beautiful irony. Amanda was actively recording her own attempt to coerce a witness into committing perjury. The voicemail cut off abruptly as the time limit expired. I immediately clicked on the second audio file. The standoff had clearly escalated. Thomas was now trying to negotiate his way out of the disaster. His voice trembled with a mixture of fear and deep embarrassment. "Look, sir, we are respectable people," Thomas reasoned. "We live in a very nice neighborhood in Seattle. I am a retired executive. We do not commit fraud. Let me write you a personal check for the balance. We can resolve this quietly without involving law enforcement and causing a scene." "I am sorry, sir, but we do not accept personal checks for $20,000 balances from guests attempting to use stolen credit cards," the manager countered. His patience had entirely run out. "I need a valid credit card or a wire transfer confirmation within the next 5 minutes. If you cannot produce the funds immediately, I am instructing my security team to hold your luggage until the police arrive to take your official statements." "You cannot keep our things," Amanda yelled. Her voice echoed loudly, completely destroying the serene aesthetic she valued so much. "My children are tired. They need to go up to the suite. You are ruining our family vacation." "Your children are welcome to sit by the fire, Mom," the manager said. "But nobody is going up to the Diamond Suite, and nobody is leaving this property with those bags until the balance is settled in full." I heard Thomas groan in total defeat. Barbara began weeping openly. It was not a manipulative cry to gain sympathy. It was the genuine weeping of a woman who realized she could not charm her way out of a financial crime. "Call her again," Barbara sobbed to Amanda. "Beg her. Tell her we will let her kids come next time. Just tell her to unlock the account." The final voicemail was the most revealing. Amanda had abandoned all pretense of superiority. She was speaking directly into the microphone, and the malicious golden child persona had been replaced by raw and unfiltered terror. "Megan, please," Amanda begged. "I am sorry. I am so sorry I took the card. I will pay you back every single penny. I will get a job. I will sell my car. Just call the front desk. The police are going to arrest Mom. She cannot go to jail, Megan. She would not survive it. Do it for Dad. Do it for my kids. Please do not let them see me get arrested. Terrence is going to be back from the parking garage any second. He is going to see the security guards holding us hostage. He is going to leave me. I stopped the audio playback. I looked at the digital display on my phone. The voicemails had been left late last night. By now, the lobby standoff had already reached its inevitable conclusion. I did not feel an ounce of guilt. I felt the profound satisfaction of an auditor who had successfully identified a major discrepancy and corrected the ledger. Amanda had spent her entire life stealing my peace, my resources, and my parents' affection. Barbara had orchestrated the theft and justified it by labeling my children a nuisance. They had constructed a false reality built entirely on my hard work. Now the bill was due. I deleted the voicemails from my device and permanently emptied the trash folder. I stood up, walked back inside the hotel room, and grabbed my suitcase. It was time to head to the cruise terminal. We had a luxury ship to catch. My children were going to experience pure magic funded by honest labor and relentless dedication. As for Amanda, Barbara, and Thomas, they were currently facing the ultimate consequence of their actions. The stage was perfectly set for Terrence to walk into that lobby. The Honorable Security Director was about to witness the spectacular collapse of his wife's criminal facade. The absolute truth was waiting for him right at the front desk. Terrence walked through the heavy glass doors of the St. Regis lobby, brushing fresh snow from his broad shoulders. As a former military officer who had transitioned into a high-level corporate security director, Terrence observed his environment with clinical precision. His eyes automatically scanned the grand room, noting the exits, the staff placements, and any anomalies in the baseline behavior of the crowd. It took him less than 3 seconds to spot the glaring anomaly. His wife Amanda, his mother-in-law Barbara, and his father-in-law Thomas were clustered near the mahogany reception desk. They were not smiling. They were not holding room keys. They were flanked by 2 large men wearing tactical blazers, unmistakable hotel security personnel. Behind them, Braden and Kinsley sat on a leather bench, looking exhausted and confused by the rising tension. Terrence frowned. He adjusted his grip on his ski bag and closed the distance between the entrance and the desk with long, purposeful strides. The moment Amanda saw him approaching, her entire posture shifted. She instantly abandoned her aggressive stance toward the hotel manager and morphed into the fragile, victimized persona she wielded like a weapon. "Terrence, thank God you are back!" Amanda cried out. She rushed forward and grabbed his arm, burying her face in his chest. "These people are completely insane. They are treating us like criminals. You need to handle this right now." Terrence did not immediately wrap his arms around her. His security training kicked in, demanding facts before taking a defensive posture. He looked over her head at the hotel manager, then at the security guards, and finally at Thomas, who was staring at the floor, absolutely refusing to make eye contact. "What exactly is the problem here?" Terrence asked. His voice was deep, resonant, and entirely stripped of panic. Amanda tightened her grip on his jacket. "It is just a stupid banking error. My dad's credit card flagged a fraud alert because we are traveling out of state. You know how these automated systems are. But this manager is being incredibly disrespectful. He is refusing to run the card again, and he will not let us go up to our suite. I think they are just targeting us, Terrence. You need to put them in their place." Terrence frowned deeply. He knew the hotel industry. He knew luxury resorts did not detain affluent families in the lobby over a simple travel alert on a credit card. A travel lock could be resolved with a quick phone call to the bank. Furthermore, Amanda's attempt to subtly imply discrimination was a desperate tactic he instantly recognized and detested. He had spent his life building an impeccable reputation. He would not let her weaponize his race to cover up a financial discrepancy. "Excuse me, sir." The general manager stepped forward, maintaining a respectful but firm distance. "I apologize for the distress your family is experiencing, but your wife is not providing you with an accurate account of the situation." "Do not listen to him!" Barbara wailed from the side. She dabbed her eyes with a tissue. "He is calling us thieves. He is threatening to call the police on me." "Thomas, do something." Thomas remained entirely silent, visibly shrinking under Terrence's intense gaze. "Please continue," Terrence said to the manager, completely ignoring the hysterical women. "Give me the exact facts." The manager adjusted his posture. The payment method provided to secure the Diamond Suite and the luxury ski outfitter packages was not declined due to a travel alert. It was forcefully rejected by the federal banking authorities. The primary account holder reported the physical card as stolen. A chargeback has been initiated, and the bank placed a hard lock on the account for felony fraud. Terrence felt a cold knot form in his stomach. He turned to look at Thomas. "Thomas, you told me you booked this trip as a gift for Amanda's promotion. Are you telling me your card was stolen and you did not realize it?" Thomas opened his mouth to speak, but the lie caught in his throat. He looked at Amanda, then at Barbara, searching for a way out. "It is not Dad's card," Amanda blurted out. The panic in her voice peaked. "It is Megan's card. She let Mom borrow it for the deposits. She is just throwing a massive temper tantrum because we did not invite her kids. She called the bank and lied about it being stolen just to punish us. She is a vicious, vindictive person, Terrence." The cold knot in Terrence's stomach solidified into absolute ice. He stared at his wife. He processed her words, separating the emotion from the raw data. Amanda had just admitted the card belonged to her sister. She admitted her mother took it. She admitted the owner of the funds was deliberately excluded from the trip being financed by those exact funds. "Let me ensure I am understanding you clearly," Terrence said. His voice dropped to a terrifyingly quiet register. "You did not use your father's money for this extravagant $25,000 vacation. You used Megan's money. Did Megan explicitly authorize you to spend $25,000 on a diamond suite?" "Well, she gave Mom the card," Amanda stammered. She took a step back, suddenly realizing her husband was not going to play the role of her personal attack dog. "She makes a fortune, Terrence. It is just money. She is completely overreacting." "Did she authorize this specific expenditure Amanda Terrence demanded? Answer the question directly." Barbara stepped in, trying to shield her golden child. "We are family, Terrence. Family shares resources. Megan is just being selfish. We did not want to bother you with the financial details because you work so hard." Terrence held up a single hand, silencing his mother-in-law instantly. He turned back to the hotel manager. "Sir, whose name is embossed on the physical card that was presented at this desk?" "Megan Williams," the manager replied without hesitation. "And who physically handed you that card?" Terrence asked. "That woman right there," the manager said. He pointed directly at Barbara. Terrence closed his eyes for exactly 2 seconds. The reality of the situation crashed down on him with devastating force. His wife and his mother-in-law had stolen a credit card from a single mother. They had lied to his face about the source of the funds. They had dragged his children across state lines to participate in a federal crime. And now they were standing in a hotel lobby expecting him to use his physical presence and authority to intimidate a manager who was simply doing his job. This was not a misunderstanding. This was grand larceny. Amanda Terrence said, his voice trembling with a mixture of profound disgust and absolute heartbreak. "Tell me you did not know this was stolen. Look me in the eye and tell me you thought Megan happily paid for this." Amanda looked up at him. She saw the uncompromising integrity shining in his dark eyes, and she panicked. "I knew she would be mad," Amanda cried. "But we deserve a nice trip. You deserve a nice trip. I did this for you, Terrence. I wanted you to have a luxury vacation." "You made me an accessory to a felony," Terrence stated. The utter betrayal echoed through the large lobby. "You used my honor to cover up your theft. You lied to me every single day for months while planning this." "Terrence, please," Barbara begged. "Just pay the balance with your card so we can go up to the room. We will sort it all out when we get home. Do not cause a scene." Terrence looked at the woman who had raised his wife, seeing the pure, unadulterated narcissism driving her every action. He looked at Thomas, the enabler who had stood by and watched his daughter commit a crime without saying a word. Finally, he looked at Amanda, the woman he had promised to love and protect, who had just destroyed his trust completely. "I am not paying $20,000 to cover up your crime," Terrence declared. He pulled his mobile phone from his jacket pocket. I am going to call the one person in this family who actually tells the truth. I am calling Megan. Amanda screamed, but Terrence had already turned his back, walking away from the liars to uncover the absolute truth. My phone vibrated on the balcony table. The caller identification displayed Terrence. I took a deep breath, savoring the salty ocean breeze, and answered the call. "Hello, Terrence," I said. My voice was calm and steady. "Megan," Terrence replied. His deep voice carried a heavy and metallic edge. "I am standing in the lobby of the resort in Aspen. Your mother and sister are currently detained by hotel security for attempting to use a stolen credit card. They are telling me that you gave them the card and then maliciously reported it stolen to punish them. I need the absolute truth right now." "Did you authorize this trip?" "No, Terrence," I answered clearly. "I absolutely did not. I would never authorize a $25,000 vacation on my personal credit line." Barbara entered my house on Tuesday pretending to borrow a kitchen appliance. She went into my purse and physically removed my platinum card. Amanda then linked it to her digital wallet to process the deposits and the final room charges. Terrence exhaled sharply. "They told me your father paid for this." Amanda looked me in the eye and said it was a gift to celebrate her promotion. Amanda has not received a promotion, Terrence. She does not even have a job. She spends her days online shopping and complaining to Barbara. They targeted my account because they knew I had the limit to cover their luxury demands. "They are claiming you threw a massive tantrum because they did not want your kids here," Terrence said. "Amanda said you are doing this out of pure jealousy." I let out a short and humorless laugh. "Terrence, I am currently in Miami. Tomorrow morning, Leo, Sophie, and I are boarding a 10-day luxury cruise. I paid for it in cash with my annual performance bonus. I have nothing to be jealous of. But you do not have to take my word for it. I am sending a video file to your email right now. Put me on speakerphone and watch it. I want you to hear exactly what your wife and your mother-in-law think of me, my children, and the law." I opened my encrypted folder and forwarded the high-definition security footage from my living room camera directly to his secure inbox. "Open it," I instructed. I listened through the phone as Terrence tapped his screen. The audio from the video file began to play over the line. Barbara's haughty voice echoed clearly. "I needed to secure the deposit for the Aspen trip. You know your father's credit limit is not what it used to be." Then my own voice played back calm and collected. "You took my card without permission. You used it to book a luxury ski vacation." The recording continued to play. Barbara's next words hit like a sledgehammer. "Amanda feels that your kids are just too much. Amanda wants a peaceful and luxurious experience in Aspen. Braden and Kinsley do not want your kids there. They ruin the aesthetic." I could hear Terrence take a sharp intake of breath over the phone, but the video was not finished. Amanda's voice entered the playback. It dripped with arrogant entitlement. "I made sure to link it to my digital wallet so we can cover the meals and spa treatments while we are there. You are an auditor, Megan. Just write it off as a business expense." The video ended. A suffocating silence stretched across the cellular connection. Terrence had dedicated his life to protecting people and enforcing the law. He had served in combat zones, relying on the absolute trust of his unit. He now realized the woman he shared his bed with possessed the moral compass of a parasitic thief. She had mocked a hard-working single mother, insulted two innocent children, and committed grand larceny without a single shred of remorse. "I am so sorry," Megan, Terrence finally said. His voice was thick with profound and devastating shame. "I had absolutely no idea. If I had known where this money came from, I never would have stepped foot on that airplane. I would have dragged Amanda to a police station myself." "I know that, Terrence," I replied honestly. "You are an honorable man. That is exactly why I did not cancel the card before you boarded the flight. If I had simply locked the account on Tuesday, Barbara and Amanda would have lied to you about why the trip fell apart. They would have blamed a banking glitch or spun a web of lies to make me look like a villain. You never would have known the truth. You needed to see them backed into a corner where they could not manipulate their way out. You needed to see who they really are when the bill comes due." "They are criminals," Terrence stated flatly. The lingering affection he held for his wife had been instantly vaporized by the irrefutable evidence. They stole your property and tried to make me an unwitting accomplice to their felony. They endangered my career. If my employer found out I was implicated in wire fraud, I would lose my security clearance immediately. That is why I reported it to the federal authorities. I confirmed. The bank has already initiated the chargeback. The fraud department has all the internet protocol addresses, the timestamps, and the security footage you just watched. The local police in Aspen have likely already received the alert from the merchant. What do you want me to do? Terrence asked. He was no longer asking as a brother-in-law. He was asking as an ally in a tactical operation. I want you to protect yourself and your children, I told him. I am not dropping the charges, Terrence. Barbara and Amanda crossed a permanent line. I am pressing forward with the maximum legal penalty. You need to distance yourself from them immediately before you are dragged down in their legal fallout. Understood, Terrence said. His voice hardened with absolute resolve. I am walking back over to that front desk right now. I am going to pay for my own flight home and nothing else. I will not give them a single cent to cover their stolen luxury suite. They can deal with the local authorities on their own. Good luck, Terrence, I said softly. Have a wonderful cruise, Megan. You and your kids deserve it. I ended the call and slipped the phone into my pocket. The ultimate payload had been delivered with devastating precision. There was no amount of gaslighting or crying that could erase the digital reality of that security footage. Amanda could not play the victim when her own voice was recorded bragging about committing financial fraud. Barbara could not play the loving matriarch when her own words proved she viewed my children as disposable trash. I walked back into the hotel room, where Leo and Sophie were happily building a fortress out of sofa cushions. We were miles away from the freezing chaos wrapped in the warmth of a tropical evening. I had successfully audited the toxic elements out of my life. The air in the luxury hotel lobby felt suffocatingly heavy as Terrence slipped his phone back into his jacket pocket. He stood motionless, letting the cold reality solidify in his mind. The woman he had married, the mother of his children, was a thief. She was a calculating predator who had plotted to ruin her own sister. He turned his attention back to the reception desk. Amanda leaned against the mahogany counter, whispering frantically to Barbara, while Thomas argued with the general manager. Terrence marched across the lobby. His heavy boots thudded against the stone floor in a military cadence. Amanda spun around. Terrence, thank goodness, she cried. Have you fixed this? The manager is being completely unreasonable. Terrence stopped 2 feet away from her. He looked at her with an expression of pure, unadulterated disgust. I just spoke to Megan, Terrence announced. Barbara let out a sharp gasp. Thomas stopped arguing and stared at Terrence with terrified eyes. Amanda swallowed hard, her crafted facade cracking under his stare. What did that jealous lunatic tell you? Amanda demanded. She is lying, Terrence. She is just trying to destroy our vacation because she is bitter. Megan sent a video file, Terrence replied. His voice was perfectly level. It was recorded by the security camera in her living room. I watched your mother hold up Megan's stolen platinum card. I heard your mother state that she took it because my father-in-law does not have the credit limit to fund this trip. I heard her say that Megan's children were banned from this vacation because they would ruin the aesthetic. The color completely drained from Amanda's face. Barbara gripped the edge of the reception desk. And then I heard your voice, Amanda Terrence continued. I heard you brag about linking the stolen card to your digital wallet. I heard you tell your sister to write off the $25,000 theft as a business expense. You committed federal wire fraud. You brought our children across state lines using stolen funds. You lied to my face and made me an unwitting accessory to a felony. Terrence, please, Amanda begged. Tears streamed down her face. I only did it because I wanted us to have a nice trip. I wanted to treat you. Do not dare put this on me, Terrence commanded. His voice echoed through the lobby. I built my career on integrity and the law. You violated every single principle I stand for. You stole from a single mother. You insulted her children. You are a common criminal. Terrence turned his attention to Thomas. The older man looked absolutely destroyed. And you, Terrence said, you had the audacity to call Megan and try to use my honor as a bargaining chip. You tried to force her to cover up a felony just so you could save face. You are a coward, Thomas. A real man protects his family from predators. He does not enable them. Thomas looked down at the floor in silence. Terence addressed the hotel manager. Sir, I sincerely apologize for the disruption my in-laws have caused your establishment. I was brought here under the pretense that this vacation was a legitimate gift. I had absolutely no knowledge of the stolen funds. I understand, sir, the manager replied respectfully. I will not be staying at this resort, Terence stated. However, my children and I consumed the airport transfer service. I will not leave an unpaid debt that belongs to me. Terence pulled his personal credit card from his wallet and handed it to the manager. Charge this card for the exact cost of the luxury vehicle transfer for myself, Braden, and Kinsley. Do not charge a single cent for my wife or her parents. They are entirely responsible for their own fraudulent expenses. I will not subsidize their criminal behavior. As for the room deposit and the impending police investigation, you may proceed however you see fit. I am completely removing myself from this situation. The manager processed the charge and handed the card back with a receipt. Thank you, sir. The local authorities are approximately 5 minutes away. Terence nodded. He turned toward the leather bench where his 2 children sat watching the adults in frightened silence. Braden and Kinsley, grab your backpacks. We are leaving right now. Amanda lunged forward and grabbed Terence's arm. You cannot leave me here, Terence. The police are coming. They are going to arrest me. You have to protect me. Terence looked down at her hand, gripping his sleeve. He gently but firmly peeled her fingers away. I protect innocent people, Amanda, he said coldly. I do not protect thieves. You need to call a defense attorney. Terence, Barbara screamed from the desk. You are tearing this family apart. No, Barbara, Terence replied without looking back. You tore this family apart the moment you decided to steal from your own daughter. You reap exactly what you sow. Terence hoisted his heavy ski bag over his shoulder. He took Braden by the hand and signaled for Kinsley to follow. He did not look back at Amanda. He did not listen to her frantic apologies or her desperate sobbing. He marched straight toward the heavy glass doors of the lobby, the same doors he had entered just minutes prior. The automatic sensors triggered and the doors slid open, letting in a blast of freezing mountain air. As Terence and his 2 young children stepped out into the falling snow, the flashing red and blue lights of 2 local police cruisers reflected against the pristine white landscape. The local law enforcement authorities had arrived to collect their prime suspects. Terence guided his children toward a waiting taxicab, abandoning his wife and her parents to face the absolute devastation of their own making. The brutal winter storm was raging outside, but it was nothing compared to the massive legal and financial hellfire that was about to engulf the lobby of the St. Regis. 2 uniformed Aspen police officers pushed through the heavy glass doors of the lobby. Snow dusted their broad shoulders and tactical vests. The sheer physical presence of law enforcement shattered the last remaining delusion of luxury Barbara and Amanda had clung to. The blue and red emergency lights from the police vehicles flashed brightly through the tall lobby windows, casting harsh colored shadows across the immaculate stone floor. The officers approached the mahogany reception desk with deliberate and unhurried strides. They bypassed Thomas completely and focused directly on the general manager who had requested their assistance. The manager provided a crisp and professional summary of the situation. He explained that the 2 women standing at the counter had utilized a stolen credit card to authorize over $20,000 in luxury resort accommodations and retail purchases. He confirmed the bank had flagged the transactions as federal wire fraud and permanently voided the payments. He handed the officers a printed copy of the declined transaction logs and the formal fraud alert sent by the federal banking authorities. Barbara immediately launched into her practiced routine. She straightened her posture, wiped her face, and attempted to project the aura of a wealthy and inconvenienced matriarch. She forced a polite smile and addressed the taller of the 2 officers. Officers, there is absolutely no need for any of this hostility, Barbara said smoothly. This is simply a private family dispute that has gotten entirely out of hand. My daughter Megan is having a severe mental health crisis back in Seattle. She is acting irrationally. I am her mother. I have complete permission to hold her card. We have the funds to pay for this. My husband Thomas is a retired executive. The officer did not smile back. He did not care about her cashmere cardigan or her claims of executive wealth. He looked at the printed transaction logs and then looked directly at Barbara. "Ma'am, I need you to hand over the physical credit card immediately," the officer demanded. His voice was completely devoid of sympathy. "I also need government-issued identification from both of you right now." Amanda's hands began to shake violently. She fumbled with her designer handbag and pulled out her driver license. Barbara slowly retrieved the silver platinum card from her wallet and placed it on the counter alongside her own identification. The officer inspected the plastic card. He read the embossed name out loud. "Megan Williams," the officer stated. He looked up at Amanda. "Is your name Megan Williams?" "No," Amanda stammered. Her voice cracked under the intense pressure of the interrogation. "I am Amanda. I am her sister. She let us borrow the card for the trip deposit. I swear I thought she was paying for this. It was supposed to be a gift." "You linked a card that does not belong to you to a digital wallet on your personal mobile device," the second officer clarified. "You then used that digital wallet to authorize thousands of dollars in non-refundable retail purchases at a ski outfitter earlier today. Did you have written authorization from Megan Williams to execute those specific transactions?" Amanda looked at Barbara in pure panic. She realized the gravity of her digital footprint. She had used her own phone to commit the crime. She had tied the felony directly to her personal device. The instinct for self-preservation kicked in instantly. Amanda turned on her mother without a single second of hesitation. "My mother gave it to me!" Amanda cried out. She pointed a trembling finger directly at Barbara. "She told me Megan approved the trip. She told me it was a family gift. I had no idea she stole it from Megan's house. I am completely innocent. Make my mother pay for the charges. She is the one who brought the card." Barbara gasped in absolute horror. She stared at her golden child in complete disbelief. "You ungrateful brat!" Barbara shrieked. "You knew exactly where this card came from. You told me to take it from the kitchen counter. You are the one who insisted we needed the diamond suite. Do not you dare put this entirely on me." The two women began shouting at each other right there in the lobby. They threw each other under the bus with vicious speed. The pristine facade of their wealthy family dynamic completely dissolved into a pathetic display of criminal finger-pointing. They were no longer the sophisticated guests demanding luxury service. They were two desperate thieves turning on each other to avoid a prison sentence. "That is enough," the lead officer commanded. His loud voice echoed off the vaulted ceilings and instantly silenced their screaming match. "The facts here are incredibly straightforward. You crossed state lines with a stolen financial instrument. You utilized that stolen instrument to secure high-value goods and services. The primary account holder has filed a formal declaration of theft. The bank has initiated a fraud investigation. The resort intends to press charges for theft of services. Both of you are currently under arrest for felony credit card fraud and grand larceny." Thomas stepped forward. His face was pale and slick with cold sweat. "Officers, please wait," Thomas begged. He raised his hands in a gesture of surrender. "I will pay for everything. I own a home in Seattle. I have a retirement account. I can wire the money by Monday morning. Just let them go. We will leave the property right now." "Sir," the hotel manager interjected firmly. "You cannot pay a $20,000 balance with a promise of a future wire transfer. The services have been consumed. The fraud has been committed. The police are handling the matter now." The lead officer pulled a pair of steel handcuffs from his tactical belt. He instructed Barbara to turn around and place her hands behind her back. "You cannot do this," Barbara sobbed. Her knees buckled and she nearly collapsed onto the stone floor. "I am a grandmother. I am a respectable woman. You cannot put those on me." "Turn around, Mom," the officer repeated coldly. Barbara slowly turned around. The sharp metallic click of the handcuffs snapping shut around her wrists resonated loudly through the lobby. Amanda began weeping hysterically as the second officer approached her with a pair of handcuffs. She held out her wrists while sobbing uncontrollably. The cold steel locked around her skin. The reality of her choices finally crushed her suffocating entitlement. The officers began reciting their Miranda rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. The words echoed through the grand room. Dozens of wealthy hotel guests had stopped their conversations to watch the spectacle. People in expensive ski gear stood near the grand fireplace, whispering and pointing. This was the exact demographic Barbara and Amanda had desperately wanted to impress. They had stolen my money specifically to fit into this elite social circle. Now that very same social circle was watching them being paraded through the lobby like common criminals. The absolute humiliation was total and inescapable. Barbara kept her head down. Tears ruined her expensive makeup and stained her cashmere cardigan. Amanda stumbled forward, crying out for Terrence, completely forgetting that her honorable husband had just abandoned her for committing this exact crime. The police escorted the two women toward the heavy glass doors. They marched them past the luxury boutiques and the elegant champagne bar. They marched them out into the freezing winter storm. The automatic doors slid shut behind them. Thomas was left standing entirely alone in the massive lobby. He was surrounded by designer luggage he could not take up to the suite and a staggering financial debt he could not pay. His wife and his favorite daughter were sitting in the back of a police cruiser, heading straight to a county jail cell. The brutal reality of their arrogance had finally shattered their world entirely. 24 hours later, my phone vibrated on the table of our private cabana in the Bahamas. I was sipping fresh mango juice when the screen lit up with my father's name. He had just landed back in Seattle. After being evicted from Aspen, he drained his emergency savings to post bail for his wife and daughter. He purchased 3 exorbitant coach tickets to fly them home in absolute disgrace. They were back in their house facing a legal hurricane. I tapped the green button and answered the call. I did not say hello. I simply waited. "Megan, please tell me you are listening," Thomas rasped. His voice was completely unrecognizable. The booming patriarch was gone. In his place was a terrified old man. "Your mother has not stopped crying. She spent the night in a holding cell. Amanda is catatonic. Terrence will not answer her calls. The police told us federal authorities are formally investigating them for wire fraud. I emptied my emergency fund to get them out on bail. You made your point. You won. Now call the bank and drop the charges." I leaned back and watched my children build a sandcastle. "Dad," I replied calmly, "you understand how the financial system works. You cannot simply drop federal wire fraud charges. I am no longer the victim here. The bank is the victim. The luxury resort is the victim. The state of Colorado is the victim. Your wife and your golden child committed a felony across state lines. The district attorney will not dismiss a grand larceny case because you had a miserable flight home. The Financial Crimes Enforcement Network is notified when wire fraud crosses state lines using digital wallets. You are dealing with federal prosecutors who look at digital evidence as an open and shut conviction." "You can sign an affidavit," Thomas begged. His breathing was heavy. "You can say you gave Barbara the card and there was a miscommunication. If you do not do this, your mother is going to federal prison. Amanda will lose her children. Terrence is threatening to file for sole custody. You hold their entire lives in your hands." I listened to the panic in his voice and felt absolutely nothing. For 34 years, Thomas demanded that I set myself on fire to keep his wife and favorite daughter warm. He was doing it again. He was asking me to commit perjury, risk my freedom, and destroy my auditing career to shield them from accountability. "I am not committing perjury," I stated. "I am not going to jeopardize my license and my ability to provide for my children to save criminals from their own actions. You are asking me to destroy my life to fix your wife's mistake. It is not a mistake, it is family." Thomas yelled, a brief flash of his old temper breaking through. "I am your father. You owe me this respect." "You lost the right to demand respect," I countered flawlessly. "You stood by and watched Barbara financially abuse me for my entire life. When I went through my divorce and begged you for a loan to cover childcare, you pulled out your checkbook. But the second Barbara told you to stop, you closed it. You chose to let my children struggle because you were too much of a coward to stand up to your narcissistic wife. You allowed Amanda to grow into a financial parasite. You funded her every whim and covered up every debt. You created a woman so deeply entitled that she felt zero remorse looking her honest husband in the eye while spending stolen funds. You molded her into a predator. And when she ran out of your money, you permitted her to hunt for mine. Thomas gasped for air over the phone line. He had no defense. He had no rational argument to counter the brutal, audited truth of his own cowardice. He tried to pivot back to emotional manipulation. "You are tearing this family apart," he sobbed. He was weeping now, a pathetic sound that echoed hollowly over the cellular connection. "I will have to liquidate my retirement accounts to pay for criminal defense attorneys. I will have to sell the house to cover the restitution and legal fees. We will be completely bankrupt. We will be out on the street. Please have some mercy, some—" I watched the waves roll. I thought about the nights I sat awake at my kitchen table, calculating pennies, terrified of losing my townhouse, while my parents bought Amanda luxury vehicles. I thought about the sheer entitlement required to steal a credit card and book a diamond suite. "You are not going to be on the street," I corrected him clinically. "You will simply have to downsize your lifestyle. You will have to sell the country club membership. You will have to sell the luxury cars. You will have to live on a strict budget exactly like you forced me to do. You will experience the exact same financial terror you inflicted upon me. You are not facing a tragedy, Dad. You are facing an audit. The balance sheet of your life is finally being reconciled. You cannot do this to us." Thomas whispered, his spirit entirely broken. "I did not do anything," I replied softly. "I just stopped being your human shield. You and Barbara need to hire the best criminal defense lawyers you can find. You are going to need them. Do not ever call this number again." I pulled the phone away from my ear and pressed the red button. I navigated to his contact profile and selected block caller. I did the exact same thing for Barbara and Amanda. The digital barrier was permanently established. I set the device down, took a sip of my mango juice, and walked out onto the warm sand to help my children build their castle. The sun was shining, the sky was completely clear, and my world was finally free of their toxic, crushing gravity. While I built sandcastles in the Caribbean, Thomas was watching his actual castle crumble to the ground in Seattle. The financial implosion happened with brutal and terrifying efficiency. The luxury resort in Aspen did not wait for the dust to settle. Their corporate attorneys issued a formal demand letter exactly 48 hours after the catastrophic lobby incident. Thomas owed a staggering $25,000 for the stolen room nights, the spa packages, and the designer ski gear. The legal document explicitly stated that failure to wire the funds by the close of business would result in a massive civil lawsuit. This civil litigation would be compounded entirely on top of the criminal charges already moving swiftly through the district attorney office. Thomas was completely cornered. Then came the criminal defense attorneys. Barbara and Amanda were facing multiple felony counts for wire fraud and grand larceny across state lines. Thomas knew a standard public defender would not be able to negotiate a plea deal that avoided federal prison time. He had to hire a high-profile defense firm to keep his wife and his favorite daughter from being locked in a federal penitentiary. The partners at the prestigious law firm took one single look at the overwhelming evidence. They reviewed the security footage from my living room, the bank transaction logs, and the digital wallet authorizations. The lead attorney demanded a massive non-refundable retainer up front. They required $50,000 in cash before they would even agree to file a motion of representation with the court. Thomas drove to his local bank branch in a state of absolute shock. He sat in the exact same leather chairs where he had previously secured the massive down payment for Amanda's luxury house just 2 years earlier. He looked his wealth manager in the eye and instructed him to liquidate his remaining retirement portfolios. The financial penalties for the early and emergency withdrawal were utterly catastrophic. The taxes and federal penalty fees cannibalized nearly 40% of his remaining life savings. Thomas sat in agonizing silence as he watched the numbers drop on the terminal screen. He was erasing 3 decades of his hard work in a single afternoon. Even after draining his entire retirement fund, Thomas was still dangerously short on cash. He had spent years indulging Barbara's lavish tastes and funding Amanda's endless consumerism. The checking accounts were dry, the emergency credit cards were completely maxed out. He had only one major asset left to leverage. The sprawling Seattle home with the cream-colored rugs and the lavender-scented halls had to go. The property held immense equity, but selling it meant accepting public defeat. Thomas listed the house on the market the very next morning. He priced it well below market value to ensure a rapid cash sale. Real estate agents paraded complete strangers through Barbara's pristine living room day after day. Potential buyers scrutinized the expensive crown molding and critiqued the custom kitchen finishes, while Barbara sat weeping uncontrollably in the master bedroom. The ultimate symbol of her superiority and social status was being sold to the highest bidder simply to pay for her felony defense. The irony was absolutely crushing. The financial hemorrhage was accompanied by complete social excommunication. News of the Aspen arrest had spread rapidly through their elite social circles. The local country club board held an emergency meeting and permanently revoked Barbara's membership. They sent a certified letter citing a strict code of conduct violation regarding criminal activity. The wealthy friends Barbara had spent years trying to impress suddenly stopped returning her phone calls. The invitations to charity galas and upscale dinner parties vanished overnight. She became a total pariah in the community she worshipped. She could not even show her face at the local grocery store without hearing people whisper about the stolen credit card. The shame was absolute. Within 3 agonizing weeks, the Seattle house sold to an all-cash buyer. Thomas used the remaining equity to pay the Aspen resort and satisfy the outstanding legal retainers. The leftover funds were barely enough to secure a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in a bleak industrial suburb on the outskirts of the city. Thomas was forced to hire discount movers to transport their remaining possessions. They shoved Barbara's designer furniture into a cheap rental truck. The velvet armchairs and the heavy crystal chandeliers looked utterly absurd being carried up a narrow staircase into a low-income housing complex. As Thomas signed the final closing documents for the house sale, the crushing weight of his lifelong cowardice finally broke him. He had sacrificed his independent daughter to maintain a false peace in his home. He had funded a toxic fantasy for decades. Now he was a 62-year-old man with absolutely no retirement savings, no property, and no respect from his peers. He was shackled to a disgraced wife and facing years of stressful legal battles. He had traded his entire financial security to protect a thief. He had enabled a monster, and the monster had eaten his entire life. Meanwhile, Amanda was facing her own personal apocalypse. The total financial ruin of her parents meant she had absolutely no safety net left to catch her. Her primary source of funding had been entirely eradicated in a matter of weeks. She could no longer run to her father for a quick loan or a new vehicle to maintain her ridiculous status. But her sudden financial crisis was severely overshadowed by the wrath of her husband. Terrence had returned to Seattle with a highly focused mission of his own. The honorable security director was completely finished playing games. He was preparing to deliver a final and devastating legal blow to his deceptive wife. Terrence refused to allow his children to be raised by a criminal who normalized theft and pathological deception. He knew the harsh truth would shatter her curated existence forever. The true ultimate cost of her toxic vanity was rapidly approaching today. Terrence did not return to their heavily mortgaged suburban house when he flew back to Seattle. He took Braden and Kinsley directly to his oldest sister's home in a quiet and secure neighborhood. He wanted his children shielded from the impending media fallout and the inevitable chaotic return of their mother. Once the kids were safely settled and watching an animated movie, Terrence drove straight to the most ruthless family law attorney in the entire city. He did not ask for a standard consultation. He walked into the prestigious office with a thick folder of printed evidence and demanded immediate and decisive action. He handed the lawyer the digital wallet transaction logs, the police report number from the Aspen incident, and the security footage I had sent him. He instructed his legal counsel to draft divorce papers citing irreconcilable differences and profound financial infidelity. But Terrence did not stop there. He filed an emergency motion for sole legal and physical custody of both children. He argued that Amanda possessed severe moral failings and actively participated in a federal crime across state lines, creating a highly dangerous and unstable environment for minors. He utilized his extensive professional background in corporate security and risk assessment to paint a clear and undeniable picture of a mother who completely lacked basic judgment and integrity. Amanda expected to come home and manipulate her husband. She thought she could simply turn on the waterworks, blame my mother for the entire scheme, and slowly worm her way back into his good graces. She severely misjudged the honorable black man she married. When Amanda finally arrived at their upscale house after her miserable and humiliating coach flight, she did not find her husband or her children waiting for her. She found a process server standing right on her pristine front porch. The man handed her a thick manila envelope and walked away without uttering a single word. Amanda tore open the envelope right there on the perfectly manicured lawn. She read the bold legal print and collapsed onto the cold paved driveway. The perfectly curated suburban life she spent years bragging about on her digital platforms was instantly annihilated. Terrence legally locked her out of all joint financial accounts and initiated the process to remove his name from the mortgage. He informed her through his attorney that he would not pay a single cent toward her criminal defense fund. She was entirely on her own. Amanda was a 36-year-old woman with a pending felony charge, zero personal income, no supportive husband, and absolutely no legal custody of her two young children. She had spent decades building her entire superficial identity on being vastly superior to me. Now she suddenly had absolutely nothing left to brag about to her wealthy friends. She sat down on the cold concrete all alone, and finally understood the massive and permanent magnitude of her own self-inflicted destruction. While Amanda was sitting on that cold concrete driveway surrounded by the wreckage of her own arrogance, I was standing on the top deck of a massive luxury cruise ship. The warm Caribbean breeze whipped through my hair, carrying the sweet scent of the ocean. Leo and Sophie stood on their tiptoes next to me, gripping the smooth glass railing with pure, uncontainable excitement. The sky above the dark water was completely clear, filled with thousands of bright stars that seemed to stretch on forever into the horizon. We had just finished a spectacular 5-course dinner in the royal dining room. My kids were treated like absolute royalty all evening, laughing happily with the ship crew and eating delicious chocolate desserts shaped like pirate ships. There was no thick tension. There were no snide remarks about my parenting skills or my auditing career. There was just joy. Pure and unfiltered joy. A loud boom echoed across the calm water. The first firework shot up high into the night sky and exploded into a massive shower of glittering gold and ruby-red sparks. Sophie squealed with absolute delight and pointed directly at the colorful sky. Leo cheered loudly right next to her. I wrapped my arms securely around both of their shoulders and pulled them close against my sides. Another brilliant firework launched gracefully, painting the dark ocean surface with stunning flashes of emerald green and sapphire blue light. As I watched the dazzling colors reflect brightly in my children's wide eyes, I took a very deep and highly intentional breath. I searched my heart for any lingering trace of guilt. I looked hard for the old familiar sting of terrible obligation that had tightly controlled my entire life for over 3 long decades. I deliberately searched for the toxic voice that used to tell me I was permanently responsible for my mother's fake happiness or my sister's lavish comfort. I found absolutely nothing inside. The heavy guilt was completely and permanently gone. In its place was a profound and entirely unshakable sense of immense self-worth. I had finally broken the vicious toxic cycle. I protected my personal peace and fiercely defended my financial assets with ruthless precision. The bright fireworks continued to brilliantly light up the dark horizon, poetically echoing the massive explosion I had successfully orchestrated back in the freezing mountains of Colorado. But while their dramatic explosion brought severe financial ruin and public disgrace, mine brought genuine celebration and complete emotional closure. I watched a grand finale of shining silver sparks cascade gently down toward the black crashing waves. My personal phone was safely locked inside the heavy metal cabin safe down below deck. No frantic phone calls or manipulative text messages could ever reach me out here on the open water. I was entirely untouchable. I looked down affectionately at Leo and Sophie. I deeply realized the greatest gift I could ever give them was not just this beautiful luxury vacation. It was absolute freedom. Freedom from the crushing weight of their expectations. Freedom from the endless cycle of guilt trips and financial manipulation. Freedom from the terrifying belief that my sole purpose on this earth was to serve as a stepping stone for my sister's ego. We spent the next 10 days completely disconnected from the digital world. We swam with dolphins, ate incredible food, and built memories that had absolutely nothing to do with performing for an audience. When we finally returned to Seattle, I walked into my townhouse and felt an overwhelming sense of profound security. The air was light. The heavy lavender scent of my mother's judgment was permanently eradicated from my environment. I checked my mailbox and found a few frantic letters from extended family members. They were filled with the predictable attempts at emotional blackmail. They urged me to be the bigger person. They claimed that family is family no matter what happens. I took those letters and dropped them straight into the shredder without a single second of hesitation. That is the fundamental lie society teaches us about toxic families. We are conditioned to believe that sharing genetic material is a lifelong binding contract that requires infinite forgiveness. We are told that drawing a line in the sand is inherently selfish, but that is a manipulation tactic designed entirely to protect abusers. Blood does not give anyone a free pass to commit fraud. A shared last name is not a license to plunder your bank account and sabotage your mental health. When you enforce steel boundaries, the people who have spent their entire lives crossing them will always react with explosive rage. They will call you crazy. They will call you vindictive. They will rally flying monkeys to harass you and paint themselves as the ultimate victims. You have to let them. You have to endure their smear campaigns with the absolute certainty that your peace is worth the temporary noise. As a financial auditor, I spent my entire career examining balance sheets and identifying liabilities. I look for accounts that drain resources without providing any equitable return on investment. For 34 years, my mother and my sister were massive liabilities on the ledger of my life. They extracted my time, my money, and my emotional energy to fund their narcissistic delusions. When I finally decided to cut their funding, the entire fraudulent enterprise collapsed under its own weight. The collapse was not my fault. I simply stopped being the foundational pillar holding up their house of cards. Setting boundaries is not an act of cruelty. It is the ultimate act of self-preservation. It is looking in the mirror and deciding that your own stability matters more than someone else's comfort. It took a stolen platinum card and a luxury ski resort disaster for me to finally understand my own power. I had to watch them actively plot to ruin my children's holiday before I found the courage to lock the vault entirely. You do not have to wait for a catastrophic felony to take back your life. You can start right now by simply saying no. No is a complete sentence. It does not require a justification. It does not require an apology. When toxic family members demand your resources, your time, or your emotional labor, you have the absolute right to decline. If they threaten to cut you off because you refuse to comply, let them walk away. Let the trash take itself out. A relationship built entirely on your submission is not a relationship worth saving. It is a hostage situation disguised as familial love. I think about my father, Thomas, often. His tragic downfall serves as the ultimate cautionary tale for enablers everywhere. He spent his entire adulthood choosing the path of least resistance. He watched his wife mistreat his daughter and chose silence to avoid an argument. He watched his youngest daughter turn into a predator and chose to fund her entitlement to keep the peace. His silence did not buy him peace. It bought him total financial ruin and absolute public disgrace. Enabling toxic behavior never protects the family. It simply delays the inevitable explosion and guarantees maximum collateral damage when the bomb finally goes off. My life today is unrecognizable from the life I lived just a year ago. My career is thriving beyond my wildest expectations. My children are growing up in a home filled with genuine laughter and unconditional support. I do not dread the holidays anymore. I do not spend weeks having anxiety attacks before family gatherings. I created a chosen family of close friends and colleagues who celebrate my successes instead of viewing them as a threat. I surround myself with people who operate on mutual respect and absolute integrity. The space left behind by my mother and sister has been filled with brilliant light. I no longer flinch when my phone rings. I no longer check my bank accounts with a sense of impending dread. The mental clarity that comes from removing parasitic relationships is entirely indescribable. You suddenly have so much extra energy to pour into your own dreams and your own children. You finally realize how heavy the burden was only after you firmly decide to set it down. To every single person watching this right now, I want you to internalize this message. You are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep toxic family members warm. You are allowed to protect your assets. You are allowed to prioritize your own children over the demands of entitled relatives. You are absolutely allowed to walk away from people who continuously disrespect your strict boundaries. Do not let anyone manipulate you into believing that enduring abuse makes you a loyal family member. It only makes you a victim. Claim your power, audit your life, identify your liabilities, and cut them loose with absolute precision. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you established steel boundaries with a toxic relative? Share below. The harrowing journey of a daughter taking down her own mother and sister over a stolen credit card illuminates a deeply uncomfortable but necessary truth about life. The most profound lesson hidden within this financial wreckage is that biological ties do not grant anyone a free pass to exploit, abuse, or manipulate you. For too long, society has aggressively pushed the narrative that we must endlessly forgive our relatives simply because we share the exact same bloodline. However, genuine love and respect are earned through mutual care and unwavering integrity, not demanded through toxic obligation and relentless gaslighting. When a family system operates strictly on the foundation of a golden child and a scapegoat, the silent enablers within that system become just as dangerous as the primary abusers. By constantly absorbing emotional blows and financial theft to maintain a fake peace, we only empower parasitic behavior to grow stronger and more brazen. The moment you actively decide to stop setting yourself on fire to keep entitled relatives warm is the exact moment you reclaim your personal power. Enforcing steel boundaries is never an act of cruelty or bitter vengeance. It is the ultimate act of self-preservation. It requires immense psychological restraint to step back and finally let destructive people face the harsh natural consequences of their own reckless choices. This narrative teaches us that walking away from familial toxicity is not a failure, but a magnificent triumph of self-worth. You are absolutely allowed to protect your hard-earned assets, your mental peace, and your innocent children from anyone who views your success as a communal fund for their own vanity. If you are currently sacrificing your own happiness to appease a toxic relative, I urge you to audit your life today and permanently cut off the liabilities holding you back.